Hey guys, Mike here. So another day, another new all-time high with the max 8, 7, whatever it is, pushing up and everything. And we had another semiconductor stock breakout today. So we'll look at those. And something interesting is definitely happening. If you watched my yesterday's video, that there are two ETFs that it is rare to see go green when these other two stocks are not going green. Okay, and so we'll look at that right there, and also talk about Tesla and Nvidia and what I think needs to happen. What just has to happen for Nvidia to finally turn it around here. But when you look, it's MU broke out, had a big day. Again, this ain't one of those big moving type of stocks, okay? And it kind of sucks because they got earnings on Wednesday, and it's really, I don't like to see a stock just run up hardcore, but it was on news. They got a big AI investment stuff. But when you really look at this, we'll hit the adjust button here, you can plainly see, well, let's look at here. I see three little musketeers right there. I see three rejections. 1, 2, 3 right there, as you can see. And so is it going to be a fourth, right? Is that what's going to happen here, or earnings going to push it past it? And it's very important to understand that level, because we'll mark it out, because clearly there are sellers waiting there, as you can see. But if you break above that level, ho, 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 what do I see right there for Christmas? I see a gap, right? These stocks love to fill those gaps that were created on a big downtrend, okay? And so if earnings, and the market says earnings were just good and whatever, and we loved it, and it pumps it up, you can see we pull up our volume range, volume profile. It makes it past that area. It's going to move quickly, okay? It's going to pull, I ain't going to say it's going to pull an AVGO, because AVGO has just been out of this world, which we're going to get to that stock chart in a minute. But you can see those volume gaps. They work in both directions. You come down fast, they go up fast. And so watch out for MU on Wednesday, especially if it gets past this level. And that's really the key. I mean, 3 rejections, you need to get past that, right? AVGO on steroids right here, and looks like Tesla. Again, though, why do we choose it? Because of the pattern, and because you had nothing up here as far as resistance, right? And it has just gone to the moon. And it's just unbelievable. Any money be going in Nvidia is going into AVGO right now. It's going into other semis right now. And again, if it would have fallen, you see that volume gap? That's where it was going to go, okay? And you, I mean, look at that right there. This has been a 40% move in 2 days. Whoo, boy. Now you would think it's going to digest this move. I know there's a lot of calls being sold today. And so that means people think it's maybe going to start to consolidate, maybe retrace a tad bit, or they're willing to give up their shares at a certain price because they'll be so far up and, you know, on this thing for sure. And so if it does start to cool down, really the thing to look at, see if it holds that 138.2%. But if we're going to get some kind of, you know, retracement right here, that will be what that is if you're just pulling from that candle. And when I'm looking at this, you know, there is a small gap between those two candles right there. So it doesn't have to give it back. It doesn't have to go for a full retrace, which is why I'm not pulling this all the way down to where it reported earnings at or anything. But there is that little small gap right there, which just happens to line up where it would be in a discount if it decided it wanted to take a break. Again, we're, you know, in this year-end rally mode, and, you know, tech and everything else and risk on stuff seems to be going crazy. But this has been a huge move. So some digestion, little retest of a level here wouldn't hurt. So just watch those levels right there. If that's going to be the case, 230, 235 or something, if it pulls back right there. If it continues to go, though, I mean, you can see right there was at 250, 210 was my fib, but that don't mean it ain't going to go any higher than that. Now, look at it in Nvidia right here. You can clearly see, obviously, it bounced right here, which it needed to bounce because there's a gap right below a volume gap, which would, you know, put it around 228, which I know a lot of people, I'm sorry, 128, excuse me, which I know a lot of people are eyeballing, which obviously puts it in support right there as well. Puts it around the 100 moving average as well. And so that would be a great bounce point, but we know Nvidia normally doesn't give us that great bounce point, right? It usually bounces before that, but I know a lot of people loading the boat between 128, 133, somewhere in there. And, you know, the question with this one is, and you can see it right there, there's that gap going into 128, like 50, I believe it is. And so the 100's not far from that. And again, if it decides to bounce from here and go up, you got to get above that trend line now. You got to break back through this trend line, which now will be resistance to try to get back up in there. But they really defended the neckline today. You see that on the head and shoulders? They really defended the neckline. And so just keep that in mind if that is the case. And what's amazing is SMH and SOX were both green without Nvidia and AMD. And look how SMH is setting up. It's setting up to break out right after it's regained the 200, the 100, and the 50. But can it? Because in this ETF, Nvidia makes up almost 23%, AMD almost 4.5%. You do the math, that's 27% of an ETF. Can it actually break out without them? Put in the bottom what you think. Now, Tesla upset me because it broke out of my beautiful channel right here. But again, it came back down, you know, basically grinded against it. As we zoom in right here, you'll see, and we'll talk about, you know, why and everything. We had talked about this last night, and I'll get to that in just a minute, but you can see it kind of fell back down into the channel after breaking out. And this is what I was talking about last night, and I had somebody comments laughing about this when I was saying, hey man, they are unloading the boat, and it sounds crazy, on these 840 calls out to May. And you can see it was just millions of them sweeping in. And the reason why they're doing that, one reason is because these freaking calls, I mean, the calls on Tesla are so crazy right now because of the premium. A lot of people just can't afford this. I mean, 840 yesterday, I don't know what it was going for today, it's 1845. Obviously, it increased. All these did after this big move today. But seriously, even if you try to come down, remember I told you last week they were loaded up on the 500s. The 500s were way cheaper than they are now, but they're still expensive. I mean, the 500s now are $7,000 per contract. A lot of people just don't have that. They don't want to risk that, right? Even if you come back to like February or January, let's go to January 31st to go to the 500. You know, today, if you had to buy it, you're still paying like $3,600 a contract. And so people are going way farther out because they think, hey, look, I'll take a smaller gain, right, to risk less, and I can actually afford the contract versus trying to actually come in and buy these right here. And so that's what they're doing, if you were wondering. And when you look at this, honestly, for me, I don't know about you guys, but I'll show you this for Nvidia to actually make a move, to actually start to recover for a year-end rally, Tesla has to somewhat cool off. It either has to go sideways or come to the bottom of this channel, because you can clearly see that is a massive divergence in these two. Okay, the crown got handed back over to Tesla. It's got handed over to AVGO, but especially Tesla, right? I mean, that still is the theme, still is a play. Remember, none of this stuff is fundamentally moves. Okay, remember, robotaxi ain't getting moved up. Robots aren't getting moved up. They're way off down the road. Okay, it's just simply, you know, Elon's in the room with Trump, and here we go, and you know, they just keep, the option market keeps shoving this thing up. But that is a huge divergence. And the only time you see a multi-day move on Nvidia is when Tesla cools off, right? And so that to me is what you got to see an Nvidia move, unless both of them start to move together, which again, I've showed you, we hadn't seen that in forever, to have more than a one-day move together. Now, crowd, we talked about this yesterday. Watch for breakout stuff. I ain't gonna lie, man. I didn't even have a chance to get in this thing. Look at this thing. It just exploded higher today and going towards all-time new highs right here. But look at this. This right here is what we're talking about when we say accumulation or distribution. That was distribution right there. This is when they had that hiccup with all the airlines and Microsoft and all that fun stuff. It made a complete recovery at this point in time. It's almost there. And so, you know, we'll see if it can get through this area. But yeah, that was a big breakout. And, you know, what's one of the themes again? Cybersecurity, software, all that fun stuff. Still the theme. Still going strong right now, going into year end. And so again, watch this one, because they've pushed everything else up to all-time highs. So if this one breaks out, you're in price discovery, right? And so just, you know, keep that in mind when it comes to this one. And you can clearly see, I love my channels. I mean, it's just a beautiful channel, right? I mean, it's just grinding up right here. So at the top of that channel, that's all-time highs. And so do I expect to get a rejection when you get there? It would make sense, right, if you get it bare. I mean, I would expect to try to retrace down just a little bit before moving up again tomorrow. But, you know, as long as you stay in this channel, a lot of stocks don't give you this, but as long as you stay in this channel, you're good to go. Now, if you want to know if risk on is the theme of the day, all you got to do is track one stock, and it's ARKK. If people are buying into this thing, then you know it is risk on, okay, because it stayed in stage one forever. What was it, like almost 3 years or something? I mean, what a laggard it's been. Of course, it's the Tesla breakout that is bringing this one to life, because most of the stocks in this ETF, I believe, are probably junk. I hadn't even looked at it in so long, because most of them were garbage. And she tends to sell all the good ones that are going up and then buy some garbage to throw in it. And so it just lags like crazy. But if it's green, that means a lot of the stuff is going to be green. You know, Tesla's green. You know, risk on stuff is green. That's just the way it is. So just, you ain't got to track a bunch of stuff. Just track ARKK to see what's happening in the market and what the real feeling of the market is, okay? Now, IWM obviously got a bounce. We talked about, hit that trend line. It's bouncing up today. Don't be surprised if it comes down and mitigates 50% of this fair value gap, this 4-hour fair value gap right there. I think it retraced about 33% as I was recording this and stuff. So we'll see. But this one, you know, the 10-year is starting to come up into an area where it could get rejected for sure. And then, of course, this one's been beat down. Everything else has been moving up but this one. So, again, if it comes up here, you know, you can see it got rejected at one of the fib levels, whichever way you want to draw them. And so we'll see if this breaks through there. Again, that trend line, descending trend line is what you're really looking for, to have a multi-day breakout to go back to all-time highs. It's really iffy when it comes to year-end. I look back at the last 10 years of the year-end rally, And sometimes you get a 3 or 4 day rally. A lot of times it just went sideways. I've seen people talking about, you know, election years do this and that and the other, and going back to 08 and stuff like that. And you're like, I could be, but I think it's just more the setup. And the setup here is it came down that trend line, which has bounced off of multiple times for many, many months. And it bounced. And if the 10-year starts to come down, a lot of this will have to do FOMC, right? If the 10-year drops on FOMC and continues to drop, IWM is going to have a great year-end rally. If not, then IWM is going to struggle. Okay, you didn't see the 10-year doing very much today during the market hours. Okay, now when it comes to data, we got core retail sales month over month, retail sales regular month over month, and that's about it for that. No earnings to worry about. And as usual, if you got something out of it, think about giving it a thumbs up, maybe subscribing if you like this kind of content, and think about hitting us up in the membership, less than McDonald's combo if you like 2 private videos a week at least, and private Discord, and a morning news brief, which everybody seems to like. So see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.